Hi, welcome to my video. I'm Jennifer Roberts. You're either catching me on my YouTube channel, True Divine 44, or my Facebook page, True Divine 44. Like, share, subscribe and comments on either or both of those platforms is greatly appreciated. Much love to all of those who've sent me messages of thanks for what I'm putting out there. I greatly appreciate that also. You can always support me also by booking a private tarot reading if you're led to do so, or any energy work or massage if you're local to me. That all supports what I'm trying to do here. I'm putting out as much free content as I can to support and inspire those who need it. Because what I put out for free is general, I pick up on collective energies, whether it's sign by sign or just collective energies in general. They are general, so it might not resonate with you. It might all resonate with you. Parts of it might resonate with you and parts of it might not. Take what helps, take what guides and inspires, and leave the rest behind. So this is an invitation for the energies of the day being the 6th of March 2020. And it's pretty interesting. Now, I've tried to do this video a few times, so excuse my boys if they start to fight or if they come in, because I'm not doing this video again, so I'm just going to go with whatever flows. So the first card being the Eight of Swords. Not the most pleasant card, to be honest. It's a necessary part in the process, but only if you use it wisely, in that this is the cyclical thoughts, the thought process, the thought merry-go-round, you know, of thoughts that go round and round in your head. Inevitably, if it stayed in this, if you stay in this energy of this card for too long, there's a feeling of powerlessness that takes over, a feeling of being trapped, a feeling of being belittled, maybe. You see, with this card, it's good for a very short time, in that, you know, we go through certain things in life and we need to transmute those through a thought process. You know, we need to look at what happened, what went wrong, what we need to learn from, what we need to let go of, various things like that. This card is very necessary. But we do have to have the wisdom to know that it's no good to stay in those thought processes for too long, because that spiral can speed up, that merry-go-round speeds up the same thoughts that aren't serving you. You're not getting any further, you're not seeing the wood for the trees, so to speak. You know, gets faster, there's velocity to it, it speeds up, but you know, you don't, then you, it's because it's a spiral, because it's a merry-go-round, that with those thoughts, this card, you see, this card will suck up literally whatever energy you put into it, whatever thoughts you put into it, whatever thought process you put into it. It'll suck it up, and it'll just make that thought process, that thought merry-go-round, go faster. That's all. It won't change the process. It won't release you. It'll just, you know, gradually get faster and faster. So it's harder to get out of. It's a very fine balance, this card, of staying in it for just long enough to get your thoughts clear, to know your own mind again, to release whatever, know what you need to release, to know what you need to learn from and hold on to, but then to jump off it, to come out of it, you know, pretty quickly. Otherwise you start to feed into this card, and this card will take as much feeding as you'll give it, which then, if you look at this hypothetical thought merry-go-round, it speeds up, it gets faster. It's the more fuel you put in it, the faster it gets, which makes it harder to jump off. It then can put you in a place of catch-22 of you've missed that fine balance that's necessary for this card. So then you start to fear the jumping off of that merry-go-round, because, you know, you're going faster at this point. So you get more fearful of the cuts and bruises and grazes that you might suffer if you come out of this thought process. So you start to also add to that thought process is fear of the future, fear of what will come if you release yourself from this card, if you release yourself from this energy. So this card coming up today, if you were to look at the wider worldwide stage, if you were to look at that, this card often comes from whether you believe in spells or not, take this as an example to explain where I'm going with this. A spell has various components to it. Now, to put somebody in this spell, in this spell in their life, you know, they're going through a spell in their life where they're feeling powerless, they're feeling trapped, the same thoughts are cycling around their mind, spiraling around their mind. You put them in this card by putting some kind of outside force. You know, you throw something in there, a pressure that comes from the outside that, you know, pushes and molds somebody in to respond in, to get into this card, this energy, this Eight of Swords. So say something was released, maybe. But then there's very careful but very confusing advice. Nobody quite knows who they're fighting. Nobody quite knows who's released it. Nobody quite knows what it's come left field. We don't know which field, you know, where it's come from. Don't know who's thrown this outside force into play, why they've thrown this outside force into play. So again, that adds a mistrust, a powerlessness. We don't know exactly what we're fighting. We don't know exactly how serious to take it. Now, like I said before, you stay in this card for too long, the thoughts spiral, they get faster, the energy is fed into this card, this merry-go-round goes faster and faster. So this outside force creating all of this confusion can then very quickly get people very self-defensive, very triggery. So then people add to that spell. So the first component of the spell is to put this outside force, this outside pressure onto someone or someone's. Then that someone or the collective feed into that by, you know, getting into this fearful powerlessness position. They feed into it and that spiral gets faster, which means they get more insecure, more powerless, more triggered, which then means division. So there's the second component of the spell, you know, that you throw. So then it becomes a feeding frenzy, a to and fro, a tube, you know, that's going back and forth, the outside force. But then this fear of the individual or individuals feeding into that outside force. So whether that outside force was illusionary or not to start off with, doesn't matter anymore, because this inner force, this thought process, this thought merry-go-round has fed so much energy back to that illusionary or real outside force. So it becomes very real. Again, we're speeding up on this thought merry-go-round. So now this fearful factor of this card is that, you know, we get even more frightened to jump off. There's this fear of the future. There's the what's going to come of this. Where's this all going to go? When we're in why would this happen? Why would somebody do that? Or why would something do that? Because when we are in this card for too long, it not only affects our mental capacity, our clarity of mind, it also affects our physical capacity. When mentally we're unstable, when mentally we're weak, immune systems, you know, get weaker. Physical and bodily functions get weaker. Spiritually, this card is like a plug being pulled. It's a zap of energy. It's literally a bypass of energy. When you've been in this card for too long and you've allowed that outside force, that outside obstacle to filter you into this position, then you get the kind of it's an energy bypass. You're not even feeding yourself anymore energetically. You're feeding this outside force, creating it into something much more real, into something much more detrimental, into something much more much harder to deal with. So right now I feel like on the worldwide stage as a collective, there are many people in this spell, in the process of this spell, in the process of this spiral, this merry-go-round. Now, with that, there's wheels within wheels, and the same thing happens with this card and with this outside force that's been thrown in around you, is that all of a sudden, wheels within wheels, divisions start happening. So even as a collective, just as individually, when we're in this energy too long, we get weaker physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We get weaker then as a collective, you know, because all of a sudden there's division, because we're very triggery, we're very so much more self-defensive. So, you know, there's people shouting out, well, you're not keeping us safe because you're not taking this seriously. Well, you're taking this far too seriously, and you're scaremongering, and you're just lying, you're just full of propaganda, and you just don't even know what you're talking about because you haven't even mentioned it. You know, so there's these wheels within wheels, this division again feeds back that negative energy, that energetic force into this outside obstacle. Now, I hope that all made sense, because to clarify this card, we have the Seven of Swords. Now, the Seven of Swords being this betrayal, this theft, this perseverance against someone or something. And so with this, while as a collective we're in this energy of being very, very distracted, very, very distraught, and in this cyclical thought process, there's somebody or something making off with our energetic goods, making out of, because all of these swords that he's stealing in this card, these are our our thoughts, it's our knowledge, it's our power. Knowledge is power. Our thoughts, you know, are the one of the first points of our creativity. You know, so there's something or someone, while everybody's stuck in this energy, making off with the goods, having an ulterior motive. So while everybody's concentrating on this outside force that was thrown into the pot, there's something much more ulterior motive going on. There's a much more different agenda. It feels to me like an agenda that you wouldn't even believe. So this is a distraction. And this card coming up today is a call I feel to the collective, is to say, hang on to yourself. You know, catapult yourself off this merry-go-round, off this thought process, this spiral. Catapult yourself off that. Yes, communicate about it. Yes, discuss things. Yes, have things out in the open, because that is part of the power of this card. It's isolating. It's self-imprisonment. Look what's happening. People are frightened. People are withdrawing. People are supposedly being made to withdraw and isolate themselves. Everything reflecting on everything. So, yes, discuss it. Yes, communicate. But do not allow yourself to get into this fearful position, into this powerless position. Because while you're here, while you're distracted, you can be damn sure somebody's nicking off with your goods. Somebody's nicking off with or getting away with an agenda that you wouldn't have believed they were trying to get away with. So that's as a collective. To bring it down into the individual lives, because again, everything reflects back and forth. Because everything reflects back and forth so powerfully, because everything is connected, individually we might be finding ourselves allowing ourselves to have this outside force being put on us by somebody we trust, somebody we loved, you know, whether it's a partner, a friend, a family member, you know, a business partner, and we're getting stuck in these thoughts. And we're probably, a lot of people are feeling the effects of, they're finding out that, you know, there's real betrayal that's been going on, that people have had ulterior motives for being in their lives, for that they've been trying to thieve intellectual property, they've been trying to steal energy force from within somebody, trying to distract them, you know, trying to make them blame themselves rather than look at the whole situation. So people might be really feeling affected today by this energy of theft, by this then disappointment in somebody, or disappointment in self for not seeing it sooner. The way I would get off this merry-go-round as an individual, if this is happening in your life, is catapult yourself off with this thought. See it, flip it on its head. See it as a gift. See it that while there's so much negative can be taken from these two cards, the positive is that, you know, things do come to light. Our true selves, our higher selves bring things about. The universe itself brings things in motion to highlight things that we either need to work on, or that we need to see, or that we need to enjoy more. Whatever it is, highlights it. And it's for us to get out of this energy so that we can actually see it. And it might be that there's time for more truth in all of our lives, and that yes, this might hurt initially, this betrayal, this theft might hurt initially, this cheating, lots of cheating going on with lovers and partners. It might sting a bit, yes, to jump off that merry-go-round and face this for what it is, the truth of the matter. But actually see it as a gift, in that, you know, you're being saved from so much more, and you can actually set yourself free from these self-inflicted chains and outside obstacle chains. But we have to accept those chains for them to work. That's the whole point. Free yourself from illusionary relationships, from relationships that weren't based in truth. So the positive is that sometimes when we've gotten ourselves into such a mess like this, that we've allowed people like this into our lives, and we've allowed energies like this to help us get into this imprisonment card, this self-imposed imprisonment, you know, it's hard to see. So sometimes it takes the collective energy to be around us for it to highlight it, to see it. And then actually to live in the truth after this, in the aftermath, is going to feel so much better than it did while we were in this card, not seeing this, pretending this wasn't happening, and continuously going around with these same old thoughts over and over again until the spiral increased and increased and increased. On a wider stage, again, it's the communication, yes, but don't be divided by this. Take people's opinions on board, because no one person, believe you me, has got the answer completely to what's going on collectively right now. Not one. But you can bet your life, while you are allowing yourself to get into this card of powerlessness, and then eventually the spiral going down to the point where it's causing division within division within division, you can bet your life this one force is nicking off with your goods. So regardless of the nicky-nacky disagreements that you might have on certain perspectives of things, it's much greater to have the wisdom to know that acting as a whole right now, acting for the greater good right now, is where the power is. Not in this self-imposed thought prison where everybody becomes an enemy, where everybody becomes a thief, where everybody becomes an opposing thought, because that's the illusion, is that we're much more alike in this situation that we're in right now than we are unalike. The collective, I mean. So that's, I hope that made sense. The first two cards took so long. So, the Six of Swords comes up next. So this is the card of, it speaks to everything that I've just spoken about before, to keep it a bit shorter, in that this is the letting go, the having the courage to break those chains, to break those thoughts, like those thought processes, to concentrate on self, concentrate on staying calm, on being grounded, not being triggered. This is the moving on to calmer waters. This is the moving on to calmer seas. the waves not being quite so choppy, you know, that the balance is there. So a lot of people might have been restricted, like they have done actually, yeah, from moving abroad, from traveling, very much so. I don't think this is going to last too long at all if you've been affected this way, because this is a card of moving on. This is a card of moving around. It might speak as well to, there's going to be some moving parts going on in our individual lives and as a collective. You know, some moving parts that aren't totally clear right now, and that's okay. As long as we don't cling on to things too much and don't hold on to one thought process or one way of thinking too much. Be open-minded. Let go of the cyclical thoughts. Yes, baby?
When you've done this video, can you help me find Teddy?
Yes. So to clarify that card
I don't want to be in.
You don't want to be in, okay. To clarify that card is the Temperance card. So this card being a major arcana, being the ultimate alchemist, this is exactly what we would need after these first two cards. To transmute and let go of things that don't serve us, to absolutely transform these negative thought processes into something that serves us, into something that is nourishing, into something that is grounding and good. This card speaks of the balance, the connectivity of all things, the fact that, you know, energy is energy. This card can take even negative thought processes, even the most negative situations, and transmute them through passing them over that heart chakra, taking them away from the mind, passing them over that heart chakra. She pours from one jug to the other, and transmute those energies into something that is useful, nourishing and good. The wisdom in this card is to know the connectivity of all things and the mix of all things, that we can either mix opposing forces to create something that is truly destructive, or we can mix even opposing forces, either two opposing forces together to bring them into the light, or an opposing force with a positive force, and mix it into something that is grounding, that is something that will help us ascend, something that will help us gain more wisdom and more balance, more perspective. So this card is knowing all of that. This card is having the wisdom to know the bigger picture, to know the connectiveness of all. The ability for the ability to know as well that through the power of these thoughts, the power, the manifestation power, the creative power of these thoughts, to use them for good and not be trapped into something that will keep us here, rather than getting us here into this letting go phase, letting go of anything that doesn't serve us, letting go of holding on so tight onto that merry-go-round, going into those calmer waters. This card brings such calm, such harmony. So the third card being the Judgment card, another major arcana, and this is the deep knowing, deep to deep, you know, the calling from within, both within the earth, you know, throughout the universe, reverberating throughout the universe, from our inner waters, our deepest inner knowings being called upon. And this card's come up quite a bit over the last few readings that I've done, and that, you know, this is the call back to the soul's journey, to everything that you came here to do, to everything that you wanted to attain while you were here. You know, the calling, the rebirth, that inner rebirth, you know, causing, and I think this is happening on every level, from Mother Earth, you know, having this rebirth process, this process of you know, being on the precipice of feeling like she's being destroyed, to just being rebirthed into something bigger and stronger. That divinity, that divine feminine being birthed back into the consciousness. Right down to our individual lives, you know, literally being rebirthed into a different age, a new knowing, a realization of the truth, you know, more truth in ourselves, more truth in our knowing of self. Know thyself. And, you know, leveling up with, because all that we've been through, all that we're going through, all of those, you know, darker cards that I said at the start, that I spoke about at the start, you know, not being wasted, nothing being wasted here, everything being a learning curve, everything being something that can add to the experience individually and collectively. But this is a calling, you know, from the deep to move in our individual power. But just like the human body, from the cellular level right up to the body that we see in front of us when we look in the mirror or look at somebody else, that there's, yes, every cell has its individuality, everything in the body has its individual journey, its individual role. But then the whole organism, the body as a whole makes up and can move. You know, it can make decisions as a collective to move towards something that is good, to move towards something that is positive, something that uplifts, something that is ascending. So that's where we're at right now. There's this calling deep within, and the challenge is to listen, to hear it, to act on it in the appropriate way. Move, yes, as an individual, but see the rest of us. Don't see constructs, don't see governments, don't see he or she, depending on friends that you might have had that have split, you know, from every level. See it as, you know, the recognition of the individual, the recognition of the importance of that individual, but the real recognition, the real importance of all of those individuals, not having to agree on everything, it would be boring, not having to understand everything, again, boring, but knowing that there's certain things that we can move as a collective on. There's certain morals and ethics that we can move as a collective on. And with that, see these illusionary aspects, these illusionary constructs that have become very, very real because we've all fed into them. No one group, no one community, no one person is to blame. We've all fed into that spell. See them shed away. See how quickly they shed away. See how quickly resolutions can be made. See how quickly people can experience peace that they've never experienced before, both in their individual lives and in the collective lives of everyone. To clarify that card, we have the number 6, 6 of Wands. And this card's been cropping up also. It's this victory trail that, you know, and this is when people can say, so what can I do to change anything? You know, little old me, one person me, what can I do to change everything? Well, that's the whole point. That's the collective body. That's everybody representing one cell in the collective body. If you start to make decisions in your own life to not get trapped in this 8 of Swords feeling, to not allow your boundaries to be swept from under your feet and people to be able to steal your thoughts and your creativity quite so easily. If you make those individual decisions in your life, if you make those decisions to be balanced and whole, and have the wisdom to see the purpose and see the importance of everything and everyone, the connectiveness of everyone, then that starts to reflect in on everything. You start a ripple effect. So to ride this wave of the 6 of Wands, we just have to start off our own wave. We have to start living in a way that we see as balanced and whole, we have to start being in dominion and in control of our thoughts, of our sovereignty, of our divinity, and that will have a ripple effect. The wave will roll into another wave, will roll into another wave, will roll into another wave. And that's the wisdom of this card also, the connectiveness of all, the umbilical cord that runs through each and every one of us. And no one person is to blame. No one person will save the day. It'll be that collective and individual process that works together, that feeds into each other, the wave upon the wave, that does this victory lap, that continues this victory lap, that brings us into a new age, that brings us into a new understanding, a new knowing. So on the bottom of the deck is the Star card, healing, hope for the future. So when you're fearing jumping off that spiral, off that merry-go-round, that thought merry-go-round, it's the wrong card, that card, you know this, that you're supported, you're guided, and you're loved. Absolutely. Universally loved. And you are just as important as the next person. You are just your change, the change that you make in your own thought process, the healing, the self-healing that you do, the saviour to self that you are, is just as important and intrinsic in the whole collective rising up, leveling up as the next person. Heal yourself. Live in your truth. Know thyself in this Star card. Have that hope for the future. There'll be true healing from this. So I hope that helped. I know it seems a bit heavy, but it's what I do. It's what I felt. So I know that the right people will hear it, and the right people will be supported by it. And I'm sending everybody so much love. So much respect for fighting their own fight, doing their own thing in their own corner so that every corner can be covered. And so be balanced and be whole as always. Much, much love. See you again soon. Mwah.